There are moments in life when you find yourself asking, Lord, can you hear me? Can you see me? Are you still speaking? And the truth is, yes, he is still speaking. God is never silent. Sometimes his voice isn't loud like thunder. Sometimes it's a whisper in the stillness, a nudge in your spirit, a confirmation you can't explain. But he speaks. The real question is, are we listening? God is a communicating God. From the very beginning of creation, he spoke light into existence. He spoke life into man. He spoke order into chaos. And he hasn't stopped speaking. The challenge is that his ways are not always the ways we expect. His voice doesn't always show up the way we imagine. But if you lean in, if you tune your heart, you will recognize his voice guiding you. One of the most powerful ways God speaks is through his word. When you open the pages of Scripture, you are not just reading ink on paper. You are hearing the heartbeat of God. Every verse, every story, every promise is alive. It's not an old book filled with ancient tales. It's a living voice speaking into your present moment. There are times when you feel lost, overwhelmed, unsure which way to go, and then you read a line that feels like it was written just for you. That's God speaking. That's not coincidence. That's communication. The word is sharper than a double-edged sword because it cuts through confusion and doubt. It brings clarity, direction, and strength. God also speaks through his spirit, that still small voice inside of you that says, wait, when you're rushing ahead, that gentle nudge that says, forgive. When you want to hold on to the pain, that quiet whisper that says, move when fear tells you to stay. His spirit doesn't always shout, he often whispers. And because the whisper is gentle, you must silence the noise around you to hear him. The world is loud. People are loud. Even our own fears and worries can be deafening. But when you quiet yourself, when you allow peace to still your heart, you will notice that he is speaking. And when you follow that leading, doors open that no man can shut. Another way God speaks is through people. Sometimes you're praying for an answer, and God places someone in your life who unknowingly says the very thing you needed to hear. They don't even realize they're confirming what you've been asking God about. That's divine alignment. God uses relationships, conversations, and even strangers to echo his will. A friend's encouragement, a mentor's correction, a child's innocent words, these can all be vessels of God's voice. It's important to stay humble and teachable because you never know whom God will use to guide you. God also speaks through circumstances. Have you ever noticed how doors close unexpectedly and you feel frustrated only to realize later it was God protecting you from something, or how certain opportunities seem to fall into place with ease as though the path was already paved for you? That's God's hand at work. He opens some doors and closes others. He shifts circumstances to push you into your destiny. It may not feel good at the moment. You may not understand why certain things didn't work out, but when you look back, you'll see his fingerprints all over your life. He speaks through the way he orders your steps. And sometimes God speaks through silence. Silence can be hard to understand because we want immediate answers, instant clarity. But silence is not absence. Silence is not rejection. Silence is often preparation. When God is quiet, He is still working. Just because you don't hear His voice doesn't mean He has stopped speaking. Sometimes silence is His way of strengthening your faith, teaching you to trust even when you can't trace Him. Silence forces you to lean on His character rather than your feelings. It's in those silent seasons that you learn the deepest lessons about His faithfulness. If you look across your life, you'll see that God has been speaking in all these ways. His word, His spirit, His people, His circumstances, and even His silence. All are languages of heaven designed to guide you. The question isn't whether He's speaking. The question is whether you're making room to hear Him. Think about it. When a radio is on but tuned to the wrong frequency, you'll hear nothing but static. The station is still broadcasting, but you can't hear it until you adjust the dial. Many times God is speaking, but our hearts are filled with too much noise, fear, worry, distractions, doubt. You've got to tune the dial of your heart. You've got to clear the frequency so you can hear Him clearly. When you feel dry, open His word and listen. When you feel torn, ask His Spirit to lead you. When you feel lost, pay attention to the voices He sends your way. When you feel blocked, notice how He is working in your circumstances. And when you feel abandoned, remember that silence is not absence. God is closer than you think. God doesn't play hide and seek with His children. He is a loving Father who delights in guiding you. He wants to lead you into purpose, into peace, into abundance. He has been speaking since the beginning of time, and He is speaking to you right now. Your part is to believe it, to expect it, and to open your heart wide enough to receive it. So if you've been wondering whether God still speaks, let this be your confirmation. He does. He is speaking into your life today, guiding your steps, shaping your destiny, and whispering His love over you. Don't let the noise of life drown out His voice. Lean in, listen closely, and you will hear Him. And when you do, trust what you hear, because His voice is not just for information, it is for transformation. His voice is not just to be heard, it is to be obeyed. And as you follow His leading, you will walk in places you never imagined, with strength you didn't know you had, and with a peace that passes all understanding. There's something about the voice of God that cannot be duplicated. When He speaks, chains fall. When He speaks, storms cease. When He speaks, direction is given and confusion has to leave. But so often we think that God's voice has to be dramatic, lightning, thunder, a shaking ground. But many times His voice is revealed in ways we least expect. When you study the stories of men and women who walked with God, you'll notice a pattern. He didn't always speak the same way twice. To one, He spoke through a burning bush, to another through dreams, and to another through a whisper. What does that tell us? It tells us that God refuses to be boxed in by our expectations. He will speak in the language that reaches you best, He will meet you in your personality, in your situation, in your moment. You don't have to compare how he speaks to you with how he speaks to someone else. If you belong to him, you can be confident. He will find a way to get through to you. That's why discernment is so important. You have to develop spiritual sensitivity. You can't expect to recognize his voice if you're not familiar with his presence. Just as a child knows the voice of a parent, even in a crowded room, so must we learn to recognize the voice of our Father. That comes from time spent with him, from walking with him, from listening, even when you don't have requests to bring. The more familiar you become with his character, the easier it is to discern his voice from all the others. Consider how God sometimes interrupts our plans. Maybe you thought a certain job was the right one, but it slipped out of your hands. Maybe you thought a certain relationship would last forever, but it came to an end. At first, it felt like rejection, but later you realize it was redirection. That was God speaking. He didn't shout it from the clouds, but he orchestrated circumstances to close what wasn't for you so he could guide you to what was. If you only look at the closed door, you'll miss his voice. But if you lift your eyes and look at the path he's creating, you'll recognize his guidance. And then there are the times God speaks through conviction, that inner check in your spirit when you're about to say something you shouldn't say, that uneasiness you feel when you're about to take a step that doesn't align with his will. That's not guilt, it's grace. It's his spirit pulling you back before you walk into destruction. He loves you enough to warn you before the damage comes. Pay attention to those inner convictions. They are just as much his voice as the encouragements are. Another powerful way God speaks is through creation. Sometimes all you have to do is step outside and look up at the sky. The beauty of the sunrise, the majesty of the mountains, the rhythm of the ocean. All of it testifies that there is a creator. Nature preaches every single day without uttering a word. It says, God is here. God is real. God is faithful. When your heart is heavy, sometimes his voice is as simple as the stillness of the night air or the way the stars light up the sky. His creation carries his message. If I can hold the universe together, I can hold you together too. Think about how God sometimes uses repeated confirmations. Maybe you're praying about a decision, and everywhere you turn, you keep seeing or hearing the same phrase, the same scripture, the same encouragement. That's not coincidence. That's God reinforcing his answer until you can't deny it. He knows we are sometimes hard of hearing, sometimes full of doubt. So he repeats himself out of love until his voice becomes undeniable. There are also seasons when God's voice comes in the form of peace. Not the peace that comes because everything is perfect, but the peace that doesn't make sense. The kind of peace that sits in your spirit while the storm is still raging around you. The kind of peace that makes you say, I don't understand how I'm this calm, but I know it's going to be okay. That's his voice too, because his peace speaks louder than chaos. His peace says, I am with you always. And never underestimate the voice of God in prayer. Prayer is not a monologue, it's a dialogue. Too often we pour out our requests and then walk away before giving him a chance to respond. But prayer requires listening. Sometimes in the middle of prayer, he drops a thought in your mind, an image in your heart, or a strategy in your spirit. That's him speaking. Sometimes he shifts your prayer altogether. You started praying about one thing, but suddenly your words change direction. That's the Spirit guiding you. If you learn to linger, you'll notice he speaks more often than you realize. Even in the valley seasons, even in the wilderness, God is speaking. The children of Israel wandered for 40 years, and even then he guided them with a cloud by day and fire by night. He never left them without direction, and he won't leave you without direction either. He may not give you the entire map, but he will give you the next step. He may not reveal the whole plan, but he will reveal enough light for your feet. And as you take one step at a time, you'll find that his voice keeps leading you closer to your promise. What you must remember is that God's voice will never contradict his nature. He will never speak something that goes against his word, his character, or his truth. That's why anchoring yourself in his word is so important. It becomes the filter through which you measure everything else. If the voice you hear leads you to fear, condemnation, or destruction, that's not God. But if it leads you to hope, conviction, healing, and life, that's his voice. Beloved, if there is one thing you must take away, it is this: God is not distant and he is not silent. He is speaking right now. He is speaking through his word, through his spirit, through people, through circumstances, and even through the silence that tests your faith. He is whispering guidance, pouring out comfort, confirming his promises, and aligning your steps. You are not forgotten. You are not alone. You are not abandoned. When you lean in and open your heart, his voice becomes the anchor that steadies you in the storm, the light that guides you in the darkness, and the strength that carries you when you feel too weak to walk. Don't dismiss the small ways he speaks, because often the smallest whisper carries the loudest miracle. So lift up your head, wipe away your tears, and tune your ears. The same God who spoke light into existence is still speaking light into your life. Trust him, follow him, and believe this: every word he speaks over you will come to pass, because his voice cannot fail. His voice creates, his voice restores, his voice delivers, and his voice will lead you into the destiny he designed just for you. Thanks for watching.